Welcome to Entrepreneur Voices, the IEC podcast, where entrepreneurs and business leaders share their insights and success stories. In today's episode, host Renee Oswald sits down with Jessica Mortensen, owner of Carrie Ann's Frozen Desserts. Ever wondered how a single food truck can grow into a thriving multi-location business on the path to franchising? Tune in as Jessica shares her journey from first customers to nationwide expansion.
Welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you here today, and we have an excellent guest today. I'm so excited to get to know her better and to talk to her about her journey. So welcome, Jessica. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We are excited to hear more about Carrie Ann's and how you got this started. And let's start off just basically with, obviously, your name is not Carrie Ann. So where did the name Carrie Ann's come from?
Yeah, that's probably like one of the most frequently asked questions. And it probably is something we should put on the website. Like, hi, I'm Carrie Ann, but I'm actually not Carrie Ann. It's interesting. The Carrie Ann's business was started by a college student here in Rexburg, fulfilling a graduation requirement, needing to start a business and create a business plan. And his wife's name was Carrie Ann.
Of course. Well, I bet he got a few points for naming
definitely.
the business Carrie Ann's.
Definitely. And it didn't really make sense to change it because it was something that was created out of love.
Yeah, that's great. So can you elaborate a little bit on that? How did you get associated then with that college student?
Yeah, absolutely. So he had started this business and really from like the basic where a college student is coming from, and he's trying to find this new equipment, but he can't find anything at a reasonable value. So he goes and buys everything used. So he buys all this rusty old used equipment and cleans it up and wraps the trailer by himself.
Wow.
Just a little entrepreneurial minded soul.
Yeah, no kidding.
And he had parked the trailer around the corner from our first house here in town.
Okay.
And we just saw it and kept driving by like, what is this yellow trailer? Like, what is this yellow trailer doing? And it was just there in the summer and it popped up. And so we thought we would try it and just fell in love with really like a lot of it was him. I mean, he just like his work ethic, what he was building this business around, we just really loved him, but the product really did something to us. Like it made us feel like, yeah, we want to be a part of this.
A little scoop of sunshine. Isn't that what you say?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's really fun. And so he decided to move on and not do the business. And so you guys were like, hey, this has got to keep going.
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
How that happened?
So he had run the business for 2 summers and then was getting ready to graduate. And at that point, he thought he would just haul it off and move along because it was really a new emerging concept. It wasn't probably super profitable at that point.
Were there many food trucks parked around town at that point?
No, at that point, there were just a couple. And so he was kind of one of the first in this town, truthfully. And we offered to buy it. We kind of did a little negotiating and decided to buy it. And it was perfect timing for me because my youngest was getting ready to go to school. And I knew I wanted to do something like being involved in business is something that I've always loved. I didn't know what that looked like, but this just presented an opportunity for like the perfect side gig.
Yeah. So why did you think this would be what you wanted to do? Like, were you an expert in Italian ice, custard, all of those things other than eating it? I mean, I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Right. So I think that some of us just come wired for like have that innate sense of like, I want to do something and I want to do something more. I had really wanted to go to law school and started a family instead and just kind of did things a little bit backwards. But by the time we got up here from graduate school, I knew I would want to do something. I really didn't know what that looked like, but the opportunity that came along with Carrie Ann's seemed perfect, and it seemed like a perfect fit for our family. It was something that was seasonal, so I knew I would have some off time and some on time, so it would still allow me to be a mom. And it was if you own the business, then a lot of times you really can introduce your kids to it at whatever point you want to. So that was really important to me. It was having them be a part of this business. And it really just fulfilled that need for me, that like deep down need to like have something to build it, to grow it, to own it, to run it. And I felt like there was a lot that I could give back to the community in that way.
Were you worried at all about the idea of taking on a business and what it would do? You know, like how did you even begin to know that this is something that you could do?
Yeah. Good question. Like I said, I think we just kind of, some of us just come like, we're going to move, we're going to shake something.
And you'll just figure it out.
And I'll just figure it out. And so really, I do get asked that a lot as a woman, like, how did you know what you were doing? I didn't. I just jumped into it 2 feet first. And I said, I'm going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of help in the beginning with like some mentors and financial people who were really kind of helping me create a financial plan for moving forward. So there was a little bit of guidance in that regard. But really it was just like, we'll figure it out. Like the systems, the processes, the operations, we really had to figure it out on our own.
You know, I love that so much because isn't it so true? We get caught up in this self-doubt and, you know, like, oh, somebody else can do that. I can't do that. It just seems over my head. But I think one of the keys too that you said that resonates with me so much is you didn't do it by yourself. Like you don't have to be a genius to completely figure out every single thing. You just take care of today. Right. And then you've got help maybe to figure out tomorrow. And you tap into the resources that you need in order to be successful. So I love that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. And I think so many of us in business are not very savvy. Maybe savvy's not the right word, but maybe we just don't know what we don't know, that there are so many resources to be able to reach out and find help.
Yeah. Well, and here we are 10 plus years later. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm still learning. Like you do learn as you go. You learn from making mistakes. You learn from, you know, successes.
Yeah.
You learn from negative reviews.
Yeah. Yeah. All those things. The things you don't really want to learn, but you
learn
need,
from them all.
Yeah. To learn. Well, we'll talk a lot about that because I'm very interested in all of that. But let me kind of go back to the whole food truck concept. Did that make you nervous at all? You know, I think typically we're used to brick and mortar. And so to think about, well, it's just this mobile kind of business that we can move around. What were your thoughts around having a food truck? Were there any issues with that?
Yeah. So operationally, there are some great things about food trucks, but we learned pretty quickly, like where we thought it would be a great mobile idea, we could move it around a lot. We realized efficiency-wise, we really needed to be connected to utilities. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, the community here, that was something that was allowed at the city of Rexburg, was they allowed us to connect to utilities where not all cities will allow that in their ordinances. And so that idea of like, let's move around and let's go different places, it really kind of became something that just wasn't ideal. But we were still able to get to different places, like by taking a pop-up tent we've done a ton of catering and stuff like that. So operationally, that trailer has some benefits. The greatest benefit is that when we shut down in the winter, we don't live in a area that is really conducive to ice cream sales in the winter.
Yeah, we don't.
You know?
Yeah, there's just something about I don't really want to go get a big old cup of ice cream when I'm already freezing.
Yeah, when it's 12 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And so being able to have that flexibility with the seasonality and being able to haul off the trailer and you know, it kept our overhead down,
right,
which was really helpful. So I think when people are looking at food trucks versus brick and mortar, especially when they're starting out, a lot of your brick and mortars or your food concepts have started in a mobile type outfit, right? And so for some people, that's a way to get started where your overhead's just not quite as high. You can work out those operational kinks and then maybe move into a brick and mortar. For us in Rexburg, the brick and mortar and Idaho Falls and Pocatello, we have a few corporate stores close by where it's really cold in the winter to haul them off at the end of the season. That's just really the way to go for us.
Got it. So can you give me kind of an idea? For those of us who are not familiar with how you do that, is there a permit that you get from the city? Do you rent the space? Like, how do you know where to put
where to start?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. There's so many different processes involved with running a food truck and, with being involved in the food world in general.
Yeah. Did you know that going in?
No, not like I do now.
Yeah, right.
Making sure that you have your understand your basic food safety information, and then going on to get certified as a food safe manager.
Do you get inspected?
Yeah, we're inspected. So every year we have to pay a fee to operate within like a jurisdiction, a health department jurisdiction.
Oh, got
jurisdiction. When you initially first start a business, you need to do this operational plan, and you submit it to the health department, and they look it over. And this is even before you're like ready to go. This is more like, what is your idea? What is this going to look like? And we'll let you know if it looks like something that would be viable, or that passes code, or that meets food code. So we started there. Then obviously kind of at a similar time, you go and talk with your city, like, what is allowed here? Not all cities, like I said before, will allow food trucks. Okay. And so some of them will allow them if they are moving around consistently, but that also creates some issues with your customers finding you.
Yeah, right.
So we really like to stay static for the season. So going to the city, finding out what their regulations are, where they allow food trucks to set up. Can you set up on private property? Can you set up in the park? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Finding out all that information, and then you have to apply for a business license within your city as well. And obviously there's more permitting. I mean, you need to be compliant with all the rules and regulations that are surrounding a business owner.
Any kind of business.
I mean, that's really getting your tax ID number, registering your business with the state, and really kind of following that process, a DBA for each location.
Oh, yeah.
There really is like quite a bit, making sure you have insurance. There's quite a bit of compliance type applications and things that you need to fill out when you first start a business. Now, that shouldn't deter anyone from starting a business. These aren't things that can't be done, and they aren't things that can't be done male, woman, male, female.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we can all do it.
Right. You can figure it out, obviously, because clearly you didn't know all of these things going in. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have thought, especially about the DBA, because it's, Carrie Ann's. But you're doing business in different locations for that. Yeah. Very good. So are you on private property, like here in Rexburg?
Yeah.
Is that somebody else's? And you just lease the land while you're on it? Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we just lease the space. In all of our locations, they have allowed us to do just a seasonal lease, which is great.
Yeah.
So we've been very fortunate in that way.
Yeah, right. They didn't make you sign something that would lock you in for ever.
Right. Now, some of these locations don't already come with utilities. So there have been a couple that we have had to bring the utilities in. So we've had to pay, to really bring that resource in. With that, I mean, just like renting any other property anywhere else, there's sometimes those owners of the property will allow for tenant improvements. Sometimes they will allow you to negotiate your rent to be quite a bit lower if you pay for that upfront with a longer lease. So there are some things that you need to look into when you're doing a food truck if you're going to be static.
Okay, got it. Now, just so listeners know, I understand you have 6 locations in Idaho.
Okay, so currently we have, let's see, 3, 4. We have 4. We're opening number 5 and 6 this summer.
Okay, got it. And then 6 in Utah with 2 opening?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, that's what I thought I saw, but hey,
yes.
I mean, that could be changing.
No, you're good.
Okay, so you do have several different cities, different municipalities, all sorts of different things that you're navigating at the same time,
right?
While these guys are opening. All right, excellent. When you think back to when you initially started this, or even going forward, how do you know where to put these? How do you have any idea where the right place to put one of your food trucks is to be able to attract the business?
Right. So a lot of times a good place to start is with the city. First of all, you need to know if it's something that is allowed, and if they will allow you to operate in the way that you want to operate, right? So we start there. A lot of times, like Chamber of Commerce, city, sometimes they even have ideas. Like there's somebody that's already set up for this type of scenario over here, or maybe go and look over at location X, Y, or Z, right? So there are some resources. I think starting at the city is a great place to start. There's also local business groups and contacting them. A lot of times they'll know, because we're looking at locations that we've never lived in.
You don't live in,
Yeah, and you don't even know what would be a good location.
Yeah,
right. So I'm starting there. Then really, most of the time I just hop in the car and start driving around and looking for space. I know if there's access to utilities then and parking space, like there's a couple things that I'm looking for, right? Mm-hmm. So if there's access to utilities and parking space and it looks like there's some good visibility, then those are the 3 key things for me that I'm really looking for in a location. Because like I said, I know I can bring in utilities. So, and number 1, starting at the city. Like if they say no, then you got to move on. If they won't allow.
Okay.
But then, reaching out on Facebook and Facebook groups, you would be surprised how many people just really want to help. Like they just want to help. Yeah. I don't know. People are bored sometimes and you just ask for help and they're out there. And I love it because some of our locations have been found by people just saying, oh, you know what? I think that this would be a great concept here, and reaching out to that property owner. So,
well, I'm glad you brought that up because obviously you have quite a following. I mean, you've been able to grow as much as you have in the last 10 years, I think that you've said. And that didn't just organically happen. Like you have intentionally done some things, I imagine, to bring that following to you. So what are some of the strategies that you used in the beginning to start building that following?
Okay, it's very interesting that you say that and you use that word organic because I consider our business like a little bit non-traditional when it comes to that growth, in the fact that I didn't know a lot about marketing when I first started. So we started with these social media accounts and we were posting stuff that wasn't professionally done. It was like just me taking pictures with my employees or my employees taking pictures. They were not professional in the beginning.
Yeah.
And, but I think what people really liked about our business was the culture that we were trying to create. We didn't want people to just come there for a good treat. We wanted them to also have a good experience, have a place where they can come and hang out during the summer. There's so many indoor places, and that is one of the things that a seasonal offering provides that maybe if I were in another like building here, I wouldn't be able to have that outdoor seating. So it is something that's really fun. People really like to be outside and they like to eat their treats outside. So, in the beginning, it was just, I think it was the culture that kept people coming back because we knew nothing about marketing, like nothing. Then eventually we were contacted by companies that would do like loyalty cards,
Sure.
that would do like, we'll push your brand, just advertising companies. And so we started paying for those like slowly, but it was more of an organic growth in the beginning, which is fascinating because looking at it now, and now that I understand what I do about marketing, I'm not sure how we got to where we were.
You're kind of surprised on how that happened. Yeah.
I am, because of all the things that I was intentional about, marketing was not one of them. And it still turned out okay, where we kind of grew this like following that we were like, I don't know. People would ask all the time, like, what are you doing? I don't know.
Because it's working.
I don't know.
There's a line. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understand is that you have been known to have a line that, like you have to wait in order to be able to get one of these treats.
Yeah. And people will wait. But like I said, I think it's all of the things that are important to us. We have just tried to project out on our customers and help them to feel that love of like what this is all about. And I think you really, when you grasp onto that feeling, like you want to come back. When you feel valued as a customer, you want to come back. And that's really something that has been super important to us. really instilling that not only in our employees, but also passing that along to our customers. And we've also learned, like, if you value your employees, they'll value the customer. There's kind of some tricks of the trade that I think you don't realize. But now that I know more about social media, yes, we have strategies now. We have professional people that we are paying to help us create content, and we're doing paid ads and stuff.
Do you do events and things that bring customers?
We do.
To? Uh-huh.
We do. We like to go to events. Events are they're really fun. And sometimes I find my employees like fighting over who gets to go to what events.
Yeah.
Like, they're really excited.
Yeah.
Because you get to meet people. It's just outside of the standard, trailer. So you're kind of going out, and your just goal is to make people happy. And so we do a lot of events. We do a lot of wedding catering. We do a lot of corporate events. I have a couple of franchisees that have catering contracts at big university stadiums.
Wow.
And so we do, a lot there. So we're really getting into some non-traditional outlets, which is really fun. So it's really kind of a fun little.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I can sense the energy coming from you, how exciting that is. But having so many locations, you really can't control everything that's happening at each one of these locations at every single minute. So what do you think the difference is? Is it in the people that you hire? Is it how you hire?
Okay, so 3 of the locations are our corporate locations. We initially started in Rexburg, then we grew to Logan, and then Pocatello. And then a couple of years ago, we decided to franchise.
Okay.
And when we franchised, we sold the Logan location because it was the one that was the furthest away from us, but it was a thriving location, and it almost got to be like too big for me to manage from a distance. And so we sold that as our first franchise location.
Okay.
So the 3 locations that we own now as corporate are Idaho Falls, Rexburg, and Pocatello.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. They're
within, closer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And really, there's something about being integrated in the communities and really being able to be there and get involved and understand what's going on that is so important for running a small business. Now, maybe if you're a big corporate business, it doesn't matter, but it's really important for us to be connected with our communities. Through giving back, being able to like integrate yourself with those little we're going to do a school carnival. Like, we really want to be a part of that. We want to be giving the gift cards. We want to be, involved as involved as we can. And when there's a homecoming game, we want to shout out to all of our, athletes that are going to be playing in those games. So it's really important for us to integrate into the communities, and that's hard to do from a distance.
Yeah, right.
So the 3 are ours, and then all the rest of the locations are franchise locations.
Okay.
So when you're talking about getting that same culture spread across all the locations, it can be a challenge if you don't explain your culture correctly. Mm-hmm. And you don't interview the right people. Mm-hmm. So we really landed on, we've interviewed quite a few people and landed on these people that we really felt like aligned with our goals and our values and what we had in mind for the culture of our business and where it was headed.
So that's very curious to me because you are a seasonal business. How do you keep staff on that are with you through the off season, or are you having to rehire every summer?
Yeah.
Spring, summer.
Yeah. So that is probably one of the greatest challenges is the staffing. We've gotten to a point with our locations, this really is like the perfect first job. And for those leadership roles within our business, it's really great for those college students. And so, hiring, we don't typically have a hard time finding employees. A lot of employees I've had, honestly, since they were like 15.
And they come back
and
after.
They come back every summer.
Uh-huh.
So typically we don't have to rehire a ton. We just get them as a first job and
because they're doing it when they're not in school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, stay tuned because next we're going to talk to Jessica about the 5 core values that Carrie Ann's has incorporated into their business.
Hey, listeners. We hope you're enjoying today's episode of Entrepreneur Voices. This episode is brought to you by Oswald Service and Repair, the trusted name in automotive repair and service since 1939. Learn more about how Oswald Service and Repair can keep your car happy and healthy at oswaldserviceinc.com.
Okay, Jessica, it sounds like another thing I think that I understand that you do is that you have identified 5 core values for your business. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me about those. How did those come to be and how do they come into play in your business hiring and decision making?
Right. So, and these are things that like from the beginning were super important to us, our core values. It's something that we've like tried to implement as soon as we started. Having that mission statement, like really knowing what you stand for, what's important. I think it's important for you to identify that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Knowing like there are certain shortcuts I won't take. You really need to know that about yourself as a business owner and then work from there. So really there were 5 things that were super important to me from the beginning. First of all, it had to be fun. Like if I was going to do it, I needed it to be fun. I don't like hearing people running these businesses that they are just like hating and they feel like it's mundane every day and they're not, and you're like, well, if you're running it, if you're the entrepreneur, like you're creating this issue.
Yeah, right.
So for me, like it needed to be fun. Regardless of what we did, I really wanted that environment to be a fun one. And then the second thing that I felt like was super important was this was going to give my children an opportunity to learn about business in a way that they wouldn't learn otherwise.
Right.
Because we started them young, they've really kind of like had to learn what is a profit and loss statement and what is a balance sheet and what does that look like, and even like inventory, how important it is to be on top of your inventory. So I really wanted to educate my kids, and that's really how it initially started. But then it kind of evolved into now we're educating all the kids that we employ.
Yeah.
So and giving them a one-up. So I tend to share more information than some business owners will share with their employees because I want them to understand like what this looks like and where the hard points are. And if they go to work every day and they don't understand the why, like why they're doing it a certain way, they'll just do it every day and there won't be a reason behind what they're doing. But really giving them a drive and a why. Like, why do we do it this way? Or why do we, if something falls, if somebody's gelati falls apart, like, why do we remake it?
Yeah.
Why is it worth it to us to do that? And why do we want everyone to leave happy? Like, so educating them on the importance of customer service and why we do things really has helped a lot of these kids, like, kind of ask more questions in other aspects of their life. Like,
do you take it to the transparency of them understanding your financials too? I mean, a baseline, obviously not the details, but do they have some kind of understanding about what it costs?
Yeah. So some of the employees that are in the leadership positions do.
Yeah.
They have to really understand like labor costs and what that looks like. And not just me saying, well, if the labor costs are high, then we don't make as much money. They need to understand if the labor costs are super high, it's hard for us to pay.
Yeah, you may not get a paycheck.
Right. So a lot of people don't come in with even a basic understanding of the economics of a business, like what it takes, the amount of money it takes to rent a place, what your cost of goods are. When your cost of goods go up, like they did with COVID, we kind of held out thinking like we aren't going to adjust our prices because it'll come back down. Well, it didn't come back down.
Yeah.
And then we realized we really need to increase our prices. We didn't increase them at the rate of inflation because at some point you don't want to price yourself out of business, right? But I had that conversation with those employees. Like, here's why I held on. Here's why now I feel like we need to make those adjustments because nobody is going to be in business to not make money. And if you're not making money, you need to make adjustments, right? Mm-hmm. So we kind of had a couple of like, we've had to talk about these. What are costs of goods at, and why do we need to now pay attention to waste? Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
okay, well, if we're wasting X amount, do you know what that's costing? And what does that look like on the back end?
Their mothers probably appreciate you having that conversation because the same thing's happening at their house.
Well, and a lot of them, they come and they don't even like cleaning their bathrooms at home. And then we make them clean the bathrooms at work. And then they really appreciate their moms. So it's great. It's a win-win.
Yes.
It's a win-win.
Okay. Anything more about your core values?
Oh, well, yes. I'm sorry. I only told you two.
No, that's fine. I digressed. I went off on a different tangent.
No, it's me. The next thing that we felt like was super important was quality. We wanted to serve a quality product. I wanted to serve something that I wasn't having to beg people to come to and to come try. I think people come for the treat and stay for the experience, right? But we want them coming back, and we want them coming back often
and telling their friends.
Absolutely. So it's, that's important, is serving something that you can stand behind, knowing what you're serving, understanding, who you're supporting in what you're serving, really having a quality product every time is like paramount to the success of a business.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So that's our value number 3. Our value number 4 is something that I feel like is probably the reason we are the most successful. And that's because we value our team. I don't think it takes a lot for people to feel appreciated. Sometimes it's just getting to know them and having a conversation and recognizing them, sending a note to an employee if you see them doing the extra work, giving raises if you see them doing the extra work. I monthly try to acknowledge my employees by doing something for them. Whether it's for them a gift card or even a thank you. I mean, sometimes just the words are as important to them as getting something, but really, really making them feel valued and helping them to understand that we can't operate without them.
Yeah, right.
Like they're a key part of our business. But what I noticed when I really kind of focused on that is that then the customers felt valued.
Yeah.
When your employees feel like they are important and that there is a part of this business, they take ownership actually in your business and they buy into that culture, then they in turn treat the customers that way.
Right.
And then you just see this coming back. They're coming back because they feel important. I mean, we would have employees know what certain customers order every time. Do you want the regular? And customers would be like, wait, what?
How do you know that?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, we did get in trouble a couple times because we had a husband come during lunch and then he brought his family back at night. And one of the employees said, "It's so good to see you again." And the wife looked at him and you came here without me? Oh yeah, he was dying. So we kind of implemented this, if you've seen him twice in one day, don't say something you can acknowledge them as hey, it's good to see you, but don't be thanks twice in one day.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
He was busted.
Oh, for sure. And he got in big trouble. She was not happy. You don't go without me.
Well, that's how important that was to her. Yeah.
Yeah. So, valuing our employees. Lastly is, and I know I've touched on this a little bit, but really creating an experience.
Yeah.
Creating somewhere where families can gather, where friends can gather, where you would not believe the amount of people that have told me, that's where we went on our first date.
Oh, how cute.
And now we're getting married. There's so many, we get messages all the time this was my husband and I are getting married. So we do a lot of weddings actually for this was their first date and that's where they're wanting to cater their wedding. It's a big part of their life.
Yeah, I love that so much.
Yeah.
Well, what I love about the core values, and I think so many of us in business don't start there or even have a conversation about that until way long into the business. And we do lose sight of our mission, our vision, our values, especially our values. And it shapes who we hire and how we hold them accountable to what we believe in and who we are. So I appreciate that very clear agreement that you have with all of your team members. And us as a community, to know the type of the way that you do business. I think that's very important. I imagine as you have gone into franchising, those those values have been pretty important. Tell me a little bit about franchising and that whole journey. Like, you've grown, you have multiple locations. There are 3 corporate, as you've said, but the rest of them then are under franchise agreements. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So probably about year 4 of business ownership for us, we started getting emails from people like, are you franchising? Are you licensing? Is there, any way we can get involved with the business? But at that point in time, my husband has his own career. So his involvement with the Carrie Ann's business is like, he's key to a lot of things, but he really helps me with like the setup, the equipment, setup and cleanup, and then running ideas. Like, that's really his role in the business, but he works a full-time job. So, so I remember kind of thinking like, oh, I'm not ready for that. Like, we're not, I don't even know what that looks like. And so early on, probably some of the best advice that a friend who was an attorney gave me was, if this is something that you want to continue to grow, you really need to look into what will happen if you go into different markets. Because is this just a fluke here in your small town and it's successful because people know you and they know your family and they like supporting a small family business? Is it just a fluke because it's become a part of like the college culture and the kids that are going to school up here, it's become something that they come to a lot? Will it stand alone, or will it stand in a different market? And what does that look like? So that is really why we decided to go into different markets to see. And really, what does this look like?
Yeah, right.
Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. Are we like a one-hit wonder?
Yeah, is this just an anomaly for this area?
Yeah, and then you even see businesses that come and go. They have these creative ideas, but it's just a novelty idea that goes as quickly as it comes in. Uh-huh. And sometimes food concepts can be that way. And so we just didn't know, like, is there longevity and what does that look like? And so the first couple of years when we started getting inquiries, we just brushed them off. I mean, I think I would respond to them. I've had people now that have reached out year 10 that are like, I reached out to you 5 years ago.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah, right, right. And I just kept telling them, we're not ready, but when we get to that point, like, we'll make an announcement or something.
Yeah, right.
Really. And it wasn't until the last 5 years that I really started getting a lot more interest. And once again, franchising is like a whole different beast. And it was another one of those, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, right.
So in my mind, when I looked at a franchise, I would think about McDonald's and I'm like, oh yeah. And then they're just going to rake it in and it's going to be so amazing. Well, what you don't realize about franchising is that it is really a long-term game. It is not a get rich quick. It is not a short term. As a franchisor, there is so much responsibility in developing systems with your franchisees,
right?
For longevity. So the upfront cost of starting a franchise, it's fairly significant. And not just the cost, but the time. It's where I joke that it's like where I spend the most amount of time and make the least amount of money right now, because we're considered a new emerging franchise brand. Right. This feels like a startup business. Mm-hmm. So even though I know how to run and grow the Carrie Ann's business, now turning that around and converting that to new franchisees, it's a different world. Mm-hmm. I felt like I jumped into a foreign language and like I had no clue.
And you were starting from the very
right
ground zero.
Right.
So have you reached out, like, are you doing this with guidance? Are there people out there that help you figure out how to franchise?
Okay, there are. And you, there are some things that now hindsight, I wish I had known, because I would have maybe attended some franchising conferences ahead of time just to get my
just even hear about it.
Yeah.
Like what are the pitfalls? What are the,
Right.
because I don't even know.
Right. I didn't even know where to start. Basically, somebody said, well, just contact a franchise attorney and see where to go from there. But like they do your major legal work and draft your franchise disclosure documents and agreements. But in terms of like coaching for like that, they don't do that. They just, okay, we'll help you set it up legally and correctly, and then you're on your own.
Yeah.
And so I wish I had, you don't know what you don't know. I wish I had gone to some conferences and really understood the process, because it would have eliminated a couple of hard steps. But we just have kind of done it and like rolled with it. So I have attended those now. You can hire franchise consultants. The people that had approached me initially, but like I said, I didn't even know where to start.
Yeah, right.
How am I going to know who's a great franchise consultant? And initially I had a couple reach out to me, but it was more of a, I want ownership in your business for this mentorship. And that just like, didn't feel right. It doesn't always feel right to build a business and then have somebody
take a piece of it.
Right. Unless, it's a strategic partnership, right? And for a lot of people, maybe strategic partnerships are the only ways that they can grow, but it just didn't feel right to me at the time. And I didn't know, you can hire these franchise consultants to help you and you just pay them for hiring. But when you're starting off as a new franchisor, you don't have like gobs of money. Like
I imagine that is a bit of an expense when you're looking at that. Yeah.
And we've bootstrapped it all. And so we really, I have tried to like determine when's the right time to leverage debt. When is the right time to come in and kind of say, okay, well, let's get some debt and hire some, but most of it we've been able to figure out on our own. So we haven't really had to go that route yet. The more people I get to know and the more conferences that I attend, and you start to network with people and people that are in your same situation, you would be amazed at how warm and loving people are.
They want you to be successful.
They do. They do. So just meeting people at franchise conferences, bouncing ideas off of them, creating like friendships with other people, even for us within the ice cream industry, has been like paramount to learning a lot of these things.
And that's not a huge investment to attend a conference.
Right, right. And to make friends is not too hard, right? Well, maybe it is for some people, but I mean, I really like people. I value people. So it's fun for me to get to know where people came from, where they're at. And so I've been able to create some good friendships that, we bounce ideas off of each other, or you're, on each other's board of directors, and if they have questions, like you're there for them.
So what happens right now? If I was interested in Carrie Ann's franchising, like what does that look like?
Yeah. So right now you go to our website and fill out an application. Okay. Franchising is so fun because what happens when you join a franchise brand is that they really have figured out 99% of those kinks that you don't want to have to figure out.
Right.
So you really jump into this playbook of how to run the business. And if your values and what you are looking for align with that brand, and it's a good fit, you sign a franchise agreement. And then from there you do training, and you just kind of
take it from there.
Roll.
So is there any hint that maybe Carrie Ann's will be outside of Idaho and Utah? Maybe you can't say.
You just asked the hardest questions. No.
It's okay. You don't have to answer. You could just say stay tuned.
Yeah. Well, right now we are actually opening our first brick-and-mortar location in Southern Utah.
Okay.
So as a franchisee.
Okay.
And that is going to change. That's going to be a game changer. It's really our test location to see what does this look like in a brick-and-mortar in a year-round location.
Yeah.
And
but the climate is so different.
It is so different. Mm-hmm. So when you have a warmer climate, more people, what does that look like? do we then continue to move on to those warmer climates? I mean, really,
the sky's the limit.
it
Jessica.
really is. There are so many places that you can go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. It's going to be exciting to see exactly what Carrie Ann's is doing. And perhaps one day when I'm in Florida,
You'll
able
see
to
a Carrie Ann's.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so as we wrap up, I just want to make sure, are there any other things you'd like to tell us about Carrie Ann's, about your journey, maybe advice you'd like to give to anybody out there that's listening?
Right. So I think the things that are most important that, we just talked about are knowing where you're going, knowing what you want to do. And I don't necessarily mean like, do I want to be a franchisor? Like, you don't necessarily need to know that. But I mean, like, have established the core values, that things that are really important to you and the mark that you want to leave on, whether it's the people that you meet or the people you interact with. Like, know what that is. And if you integrate that in your business, it will bring you success. And so for people who are like looking to start businesses and they don't know where to start, like, start there.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you just can grow in so many different aspects, and you yourself will grow, but jump 2 feet in and go for it. You don't have to know all the things. And there's enough resources, there's enough people, there's places like the Entrepreneurial Center that will help guide people. There are so many opportunities, and there are so many people out there that are willing to mentor. So just do it. Just decide to do it and jump 2 feet in and go for it. So that would be my only advice. Know who you are and know where you want to go.
Yeah. Well, I so appreciate that. And I love that you have your personality. It clearly shines through this interview and in the business, and especially with identifying what those core vision values, are, because it really does set your culture, and culture is everything. And so many of us don't pay attention to that. So thank you so much for teaching us about that and showing us how that has resulted in great success. So we just wish you the best going forward, and we hope to see Carrie Ann's all over the place.
Thank you so much. We hope to be scooping up sunshine one gelati at a time.
I hope so too. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Entrepreneur Voices. We hope you gained valuable insights from Jessica Mortensen's entrepreneurial and franchising journey. Be sure to join us next time as we hear from Chad Erickson, a second-generation entrepreneur in the sports apparel industry. Until then, stay inspired. And thanks for being a part of our community.